Hello and welcome to Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hello, Rory.
Hello, Christina. How are you?
You know what? I'm super duper. I am so excited about RSA next week. I am in that frenzy, like I'm sure everyone is, getting ready, but I am so excited to see everyone. How are you? What's going on in
fine.
your world?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just preparing myself for the long journey over. I'm getting myself ready, but of course, by the time that everybody hears this, it will be day one of the show. So this is our kind of special pre-RSA episode. So when this goes out, it'll be published around midday UK time on day one of the show. So for those of you in the US, you'll get this first thing in the morning. So something to listen to while you have your breakfast.
If they're not running madly to first breakfast at the show, which we'll be doing, and then second breakfast, and then brunch, and then finally lunch. And yeah, we're completely booked up. We have, somewhere between 28 and 32 meetings. And so we're excited, and I'm a little exhausted in advance, to be honest with you, Rory.
Well,
but I'm excited. We're seeing so many friends. We're going to be meeting with Lumen and Zalient and IBM again.
Yeah.
and then we're meeting with
NetSpy and a whole bunch of others.
Yeah, NetSpy, Level Blue. I'm sure I'm forgetting half of them, and I was trying to open my RSA planning document, but OneDrive has decided to go to sleep today, so it's not working. So I can't get in. But anyway, very excited to see everyone.
Yeah, and a couple of things we will be doing at the show. First of all, we'll be doing a podcast. We won't be broadcasting it live. That would be too much of a recipe for chaos and disaster.
Disaster.
It will be. Usually when you try and do anything live, even if you prepare, the wheels come off. So we'll leave that to the professionals to do that kind of thing. But we will be having a podcast, and it will be video as well. So we'll have to make sure we don't look too wrecked at that point on the Thursday morning.
Oh, and we decided to do it Thursday, which is just the worst day because it's the last day. So honestly, folks, please, a little forgiveness in advance. We will be wrecked.
You'll get to see us there. I know, exactly. And for video, it'll be a bit of a novelty. And if it works, then we might do some more.
We might. Yeah. So on during RSA, also on Thursday, we are launching our first newsletter. Our newsletter will come out monthly on the first Thursday of the month. And we're super excited. It's Signal Not Noise is the title. There are 7 sections. And the one I'm probably the most excited about is something we're calling Market Pulse. And this will give you a little bit of a teaser on our current syndicated survey for our clients. We'll give you just a little snippet of data, and maybe that'll entice you to work with us a little more deeply, which of course is part of the point. But the other part, the other point, is to give you some market data that will be helpful to you. So wait for that, and then we'll have some the topics that we're tracking. We'll have what we're reading, what's on our radar, and some links to articles and blogs, and of course links to our podcast. So look for that on Thursday the 1st as well.
Great. And for those who are not signed up to receive this, how can they do that, Christina?
They should go to www.richmondadvisorygroup.com, and on the homepage down at the bottom, they can subscribe to our mailing list. Very simple. Submit it and you will be in, and we'll be sending you the newsletter. We'll also be sending you our blog as it comes out. We do give clients a week advance on whatever blog or article we're writing, unless it is an announcement that has to go out immediately. But typically clients will get something like that a week in advance. But hey, you'll get it the next week. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
The other thing I wanted to mention on an update was about our AI survey, which of course we kind of will weave into some of the additional details and insights that we provide in things like the newsletter. But certainly for the RSA show, we're planning to have some insights available.
Yeah, we're going to have a little teaser, a little leave behind. And, it's our first AI security survey. It's in the US, it's 300 IT decision makers. And that is a nice statistically relevant number for surveys, and it's great data. We have analyzed it. Whew, it was quite a quick run through the data in order to get ready for RSA. Some really interesting data points, so we hope you enjoy the little snippets that we share. Of course, we'll be doing full readouts to those of you who are our clients, so you'll get the readout in the coming weeks after RSA.
Thanks, Christina. And if this is something that is of particular interest to you, the motivations, the plans, the use cases for AI security, have a chat with us. Send us a note, leave us a voice message about what you think, but also if that might be something you might be interested in finding out more about, because as Christina's mentioned, this is something we provide for our clients as part of the service. Great. So this week's special guest we're very pleased to have on the show is cybersecurity veteran Ed Martin, who leads the product management function for Microsoft Threat Intelligence. Hi, Ed. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, Rory. Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's always great to have guests on. Christina.
Yeah, sorry, I was jumping in. I'm so excited that Ed has joined us. Ed and I don't remember exactly when we met. It might have been when you were at SecureWorks, but we go back a ways, don't we?
Yeah, I was looking through my own notes, and I think the first time we interacted was at a time when I was more of a junior product manager, and I think you were still at IDC. I believe you had just taken on a new role with them, and we interacted for the first time. You were actually my first industry analyst that I interacted with, so that's why you're so near and dear to my heart.
Oh, that is so sweet. So if I had just taken on a new role and you were, more junior than you are now, you're certainly not junior today. That is going back, I'm going to guess, to 2013, which is 12 years ago, Ed.
Yeah, yeah. I was an
Oh,
internal product manager for essentially analyst services inside of SecureWorks, the managed security services provider, who's recently been bought by Sophos, as you know. But back then, we were a pretty much a powerhouse in the services industry, and I was just thrilled to have the opportunity that I had, and got Mark Wood, who was the head of product back then,
yes.
introduced me
Yes,
to
I
you,
know Mark.
and yeah, Mark's great, and he asked me to work with you on some things. I can't recall what the things were, but I do remember that's about right.
Well, I don't remember what the things were either. I mean, we're a little long in the tooth when we're going back to 2013. But yeah, SecureWorks was really one of the top MSSPs back then, was before that, was ongoing for quite a while. And it's been fascinating to see the market shift. You also led the development of Taegis, didn't you, for SecureWorks? Or you worked on the team for Taegis, which was the XDR, EDR, XDR capability. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was with SecureWorks on their legacy product stack until 2016, 17, I forget. It's on my LinkedIn, but and then I spent a year at a startup in Manhattan called Blue Voyant, which is now also a
Yes.
flourishing services company. I was the head of engineering to launch their services. And then I got recalled back to a second tour of duty with SecureWorks, and I led product for the launch of Taegis, that XDR platform.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, boy, it's like walking through history a little bit. It's terrific.
Yep.
And I'm so glad to have you on, Ed. So, one
Thanks.
of the things that we love to ask our guests is what keeps you up at night? And, the
Yeah,
answers are myriad. So, what keeps you up at night?
yeah. Uh, I've been asked this before, and I try to break it into restless nights and sleepless nights. So,
Oh,
restless
okay.
nights for me are all about hygiene. There are so many gaps in this industry
Yep.
around lack of proper hygiene, and no matter how many years we have been talking to customers or managing our own environments, there is still lack of support for basic hygiene. And then for the sleepless nights, I really, especially working where I work now, there's so much unknown about how LLMs and AI are going to impact the world in general. And
Mm-hmm.
our industry is at the forefront of that. So as we learn to automate, as we learn to trust this new capability, and then we trust it enough to perform actions for us, that
Mm-hmm.
has me really concerned, especially when you consider the first point of lack of hygiene.
Wow, you tied something perfectly together that we talked about earlier in this segment, or earlier in this podcast, where we brought up a guest who runs GRC for a bank. And when we asked him, he said, "Yeah, I'm worried about some of the new technology capabilities, but I'm also really worried about the fundamentals, the
Mhm.
foundational things that we are still not good at." So you've definitely tied that together. The other thing you've tied together for me is that AI is going to be able to do so much to help us. And of course, we're all feverishly learning what it can do. So, a couple of things that come to mind for me. One is a wonderful quote that someone posted on LinkedIn that was something to do with, we want AI to do the laundry or the dishes. We don't want it to make art. So, cybersecurity professionals want to do the cool thing. They want to work with the
Mhm.
cool technology, and they don't necessarily want the AI capabilities to take away the high end triage, the investigative research that they're doing, but to do the basics. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is the sweet spot. And I have two, you called me long in the tooth, I think, earlier on. And so I think back on previous generations or generational changes.
Mm,
I think of two specifically that really helped me rationalize this one. The first was the transition from static rules-based endpoint agents into the
yep.
EDR space, where we're going from antivirus to EDR, and EDR can do this magic ML thing, and how much do we trust the ML thing? And for that, if you look at the trust curve, you see early adopters obviously jumped in, and it was really hard to quantify the value of those early initiatives. You could see that there was
Right.
more visibility, the always on listening capabilities, all of that was excellent, but the true detection capabilities really didn't shine, and it was really hard to take that and quantify it. And then the second transition that I think of when I think of the AI revolution is a few years ago when we had the SOAR revolution. I'm sure you remember
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
every investor wanted to throw millions at a SOAR company, and um, we used to say, SOAR is simply a gap in SIM. And so when we look back on that time, same kind of thing. Early adopters jumped all over it. We jumped all over it at Gluvoyant. We used it. We were at the time there was a product called Demisto, which has since been
Yep.
purchased by Palo. But what we found with both of those transitions was it followed the standard trust curve. Early adopters trust early, and it took a while for the standard security program to adopt these newer technologies. First for the ML concerns that they didn't quite understand the algorithms, and then later for the fragility of the static SOAR systems and the playbooks that were built. So when I look at those two in the past and I bring them forward into AI is the trust value of AI reminds me a lot of that transition from static rules into machine learning capabilities. And
Yep.
the agentic frameworks remind me of the SOAR revolution, which is we're going to automate all the things. And in reality, it didn't happen the way we wanted it to. And I think we'll see some some curve that looks similar to those two curves with AI and agents, unless something new comes in that disrupts again.
Of course, of course. No, that's such a great analogy. And so Rory comes out of a cloud infrastructure background, and we talk a lot about how the hype cycle of AI is similar to the hype cycle of cloud, and that the early adopters, right, were all into cloud. They were starting to build in cloud. They were cloud native. We have a lot of folks doing similar infrastructure changes today using AI as the basis, using all of the agentic capabilities with AI in cybersecurity. And then you've got those folks who are hair on fire saying they're never going to use it. And so it's early days. The reality is that AI has not in the form it's today, but has been here since the 1950s. And to your point at about, machine learning, we've been using it in cybersecurity for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Christina and Ed. As Christina mentioned, my background is on the cloud and infrastructure side, and I do remember, back in the day when I was at IBM, in fact, and this whole idea of the cloud came along on the tail of something that was called on-demand services. Right, there's this huge scrabble to define what it was. There's that TV interview with Sam Palmisano at the time, and he gave a kind of a rough prediction on, everything's going to be on demand. Well, what is it? How do we quantify the market and so on? But I think part of it is, without getting too philosophical, is the fact that we often see these things as the technologies are making our lives easier. Cloud was kind of the same. It makes it easier for us. AI would make it easier for us. It'll mean less work for us, it'll be more work for the machines, etc., to do a generalization. I guess I've come to realize, looking back on that now, having seen many technologies come and go or whatever, is that the complexity of the requirements for technology continually increase. So in the same way that, managing cloud has not become easier, it's still as complex as it was, and because there are greater needs and requirements for more complex services and more complex architectures and so on. I think the same thing will happen with AI when it comes to security, perhaps, that the complexity of requirements and needs increases, therefore the complexity of the architecture and the frameworks has to increase, and so on and so forth. There's not necessarily an end point for any of this. What do you think?
That's a fantastic point. When you look at these current trends, they definitely mirror in a much more broad way some of those early ML adoptions and how we got to a place where we could trust them. And when you intermingle that with the complexities of cloud configuration and managing multiple clouds, ephemeral instances within clouds, you get to this place where it's really a matter of expertise. And if we can use AI to scale back the toil on the experts, it is possible that we will be able to relieve some of the necessity to have so many experts. I, I think that's still up in the air, because while we're on the defending side looking to extrapolate, how do we look at all of these different angles, whether it be how do you build your data lake as a large enterprise. Historically it was just make sure that the data is all there and we'll figure it out. And then it was make sure the data is all there and normalized. And that has taken on the form of a jobs program in some companies. And now you're saying, put all your data in one place, normalize it for today, and ensure that it is formatted for AI for tomorrow. And so when you compare when you intermingle these two technologies, the complexity goes off the map. Now, that just means there's more holes. And while we're sitting on top of this brand new technology, so are our adversaries. And as we know, with any new technology gap, they're already replaying old techniques, but doing them at even faster speeds at hyperscale because of this new technology. And so we have to also be on guard for the basics, my call to hygiene. And we also have to have trained experts that can combat that. And I think it's such an interesting time to be in cybersecurity because of all these different angles you have to consider.
I love that you bring up, that the adversary is looking at those holes just as we're trying to close them, fix them, remediate them, find them, right? Vulnerability management, exposure management, those are things that I think we're getting better at, but there is so much noise to cull through, and we can use AI to help us cull through that noise and reduce the funnel into, hopefully what AI can handle for us in some automation, which you referenced earlier, and where the humans can play and should play. But while we're figuring this out, to your point, the adversary is still really innovating. So we've talked on this show about slop squatting, which is the term, and I love this term. It is where AI is creating packages that are not real. When coders are using AI to code, there is this potential to create these hallucinated packages, so not real packages, that then they're proliferating through their code. And so that's one thing I never would have really thought about in using AI for coding. And then you look at the deep fake capabilities that are now enabled for the adversary, where they can take a snippet of our voices and put whatever text they want to that voice. They can take a video they find of us anywhere online, and they can have us saying something to do spear phishing or any other type of social engineering to be able to get access to privileged credentials. It's crazy how quickly those capabilities have arisen with Gen AI. What do you think about that, Ed?
Wow, so much to unpack there.
Right?
In 2018, 2019, when we first started to see what we would now call AI generated voice, but at the time was ML audio, there was a coworker of mine at Securix named Roger Weems who had a long conversation with me one night about the concept of putting all of your life's work into a central repo of some sort, such that at the time machine learning could understand all the nuances of who you were, and then ideally your loved ones could have conversations with you long past your life.
Wow.
And yeah, and I wish I had bought that stock back then. I don't know who's doing it, but what an incredible thought. Now it's morbid, but if you unpack it, I think it touches on a lot of the pieces that you're talking about, right? So the opportunity exists for modern AI systems to completely understand everything about you. It's not always right, but humans aren't always correct in their speech either. So while today it's a little easy to tell when you're talking to an AI generated voice, that's going to get cleaned up pretty quickly. And I think the first target will be phone calls, and there already is phone calls. And while video is on its way, it's still clunky enough where you can tell. Whereas properly timed email with a phone call, an AI phone call with the knowledge of you as a business person, as a tech professional in a database to ride on top of, that's terrifying, because the person on the other end would have no idea that you're not actually Christina, and if we had a scheduled call.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so
even
the opportunity,
yeah, I mean, even if you had passed away, I think, going back to your first point, right? Imagine using the voices of people who've passed. If you're archiving voices for the purpose of interacting with them, that would be super sinister. We always talked about the ghost in the machine, right? But this is like the soul of somebody in a machine, and I think people would be very uncomfortable about it. I think, at least to your point, Ed, we can still recognize that they are artificially generated, but it's increasingly the case that people are being fooled by them because of their own, perhaps, fear or anxiety about doing something or not doing something they've been instructed to do, for example, or the fact that they don't feel they can challenge it in the same way that you can with, let's say, an email. I think there's definitely that issue there from a security perspective, where if we look at the statutory requirements that we all go through, and certainly we had it in our corporate days, Christina and I, to go through, how to recognize a bad email, how to recognize something that might be phishing, how to recognize a written instruction that doesn't come from the right person. If it's audio, that's a different matter entirely. you're less likely to kind of contest it or to challenge it if it's a person at a voice. I don't know. What do you think?
Christina and I have had enough conversations where she probably realizes it never these topics never shut off in my brain. So my I my thoughts wander into both the nefarious and the positive side of things, right? The ability to transcend your physical body. So there's lots of different tinfoil hat capabilities there, but there's also some ways that people could maybe say goodbye after you're gone. So to close up the morbid piece, I think there is something there for folks who need help closing down. But on the cybersecurity side or the security in general side, I think there's an opportunity there for uh, AI detection capabilities in audio. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, and I've had some conversations outside of my current employer on this, just kind of general casual conversations. But if you can find a way, in the same way that schools are detecting the use of LLMs in papers, if there is some way to do that for audio, I think that has to accompany the rise in audio deepfakes. Um, it's never going to catch up. It's never going to be perfect, but I think there's an area there that has to be looked at. Same with video, obviously. Um, and only then can we actually have some way to fight back. Because right now, if done right, an AI voice could fool you. It has to be tied into to an attacker and their program. It can't be just a random call. But if you were expecting Ed Martin to call and it was close enough and you didn't know me very well, I think it could pass.
I have to go back to something that you said about, philosophically, that there may be things that we need to tie loose ends together after we've passed. And so I have to just bring up this podcast is very, we go in lots of different directions, Ed, and we love to have a
I
little bit
hope
of
so.
fun. So I'll just, right. So I'll just throw this out there that there are a couple of shows that I watched this year. One is called Pantheon. It's an animated show about uploading your brain to the cloud. And so that's fun. So you're
Yeah.
not really in your physical body anymore, and your brain lives on forever, potentially. Now, I won't spoil the show if people decide to go watch it. I would say the first season was better than the second season, as they often are. The other show that I watched was Severance. You've probably heard of that. It's an Apple
Oh yeah.
TV show. And
Hmm.
that's about uploading um, your brain so that you split your life in half, so that half of your time is spent at work and it has no connection to the other half of your life that is spent in your personal time. And so both are, we think that fiction usually can become reality. So both of those are things to think about when we're talking about the possibility of deepfakes, the possibility of what we can do with voice, and the legacy we might want to leave. I love that conversation that you had with Roger that was about, let's upload everything we can to leave our loved ones something in the future. I love science fiction, so that all speaks to me quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, you can sit around with friends and the beverage of your choice and kind of take this in so many different directions. I also science fiction nut, but I'm also kind of a sociology nerd where I like to see
Mm.
how groups of people react. It's probably why I like to be a product manager so much. But from my perspective, I will sometimes host uh, groups of folks where we break the normal rules. We say, as friends, and especially nowadays, we'll say, let's get together, no politics, no religion. I like to think back into the ancient Greeks where you'd get a group of folks together and that's all you talked about, but it was sort of predictable. We're going to talk about this topic. So I've tried that a few times with friends, and AI has been where we ended up in both conversations. And because it can percolate across all of this, right? You can look at its impact on how it can change government, how it can impact your thoughts on religion, how it can impact your thoughts on interpersonal relationships. So it is to go back to your comments about science fiction. It's here. it's.
Yeah.
Um, I used to say to my friends, I was a Star Trek baby. So my mom's favorite television show was Star Trek. We watched it all the time, and I had this this view of the world that everything was going to be fine. Everyone's going to get along. This technology is going to make toil go away. And while we're not there, I still cling to that hope. And so I think sometimes when I see this technology, I cling more to speakers about it, like Matthew Berman on YouTube, who talks about AI in the most positive and glowing terms. I tend to prefer that as opposed to some of the darker sides of science fiction, which we can get to as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one you bring that up, because I've often also said that, we look to the future, it's either Star Trek or Blade Runner, or maybe somewhere in between, right? It's those two, it's like utopia versus dystopia. And most people would say, well, it's probably somewhere in between, but nobody quite knows where at any given day of the week. I mean, we're all technologists here on this show, and most of the people that we interact with, folk, generally would have a kind of a positive view of what technology can do, until you start sort of scratching below the surface. And on that note, Ed, I kind of wanted to finish our chat with, what do you think is coming next? Don't worry, we're not going to hold you to it. It won't be a case of Ed Martin said that, but what do you think? I mean, from a cyber perspective, where do you see the next challenges coming from? Positive and negative. Where do you think things can go?
I am in the shortest of terms. I am really excited about the use of AI as a personal assistant. Um, I know that it's for those of us in technology who may already be using some of those features, but you have to remember the long adoption curve on disruptive technologies, and I'm really excited about that, taking that out to the masses. The example I'd love to give you is my wife, who was at SecureWorks for 14 years, was not part of the group that transitioned into Sophos when they were acquired, and so she was at this point in life that we all get to once or twice in our lives where the thing that you love is no longer there, and she made the decision to try something new, and she went from security research, which she's done for a long time, and she decided that she really is in love with the creativity of marketing and the creativity of website design and all of that. And while she played around with it as a hobby, as you know, 10,000 hours matter. So in her case, she's been able to, in about 45 days, go from being laid off and kind of processing that to learning an entirely new profession, starting a company, and she now has 5 customers in 45 days.
Oh
So
my goodness.
Wow.
to me, that's the positive side of acceptance and adoption is I have a question, I could spend 10 minutes reading a bunch of Google sites and try to figure out if any of them are correct, or I can have an ongoing open conversation with your GPT of choice and learn as you go, apply those lessons, accelerate your learnings, and then take that out to the market. And while Code and Craftworks has not officially launched yet, she's got enough initial customers to really be excited about the future. And I think about this, and I think about folks that are maybe not Luddites, but people that are less interested in or skeptical of technology. If we can get that group of folks in the masses to adopt something like this, then the sky's the limit on what the individual can do. And that to me is the next. I think it's all about adoption. It's all about recognition of benefit. And you can go in any direction you want. You can talk about how a group of folks who are working at 7-Eleven right now who really want to get into cybersecurity could have that opportunity. Now, maybe they'd still be an entry level analyst to start with, but they don't need 10 years of school anymore. They could pick it up much faster if their interest is there.
I love that. Yeah, no, I love that. And there are these companies that are coming online today that are becoming those personal assistants for security analysts. They are answering the questions quickly of, okay, you see this port is open, this anomalous behavior is occurring, these are the people and the devices involved, this is the industry, here's what we recommend you do in this particular situation. And I love that as a personal assistant. I don't think we're ready to trust that 100%. So I'm also seeing the continued involving of human beings so that we are helping to train the model, helping to bring in that human consideration, that nuance that needs to be included as we advise these security analysts in what they should do in XYZ situation. So I am very excited about those capabilities that I think are coming.
And I echo all of that, Christina. And Ed, I think also there's probably an element of the fact that your wife is also very smart and very capable. And I think that's it, right? When you have a smart and capable person who can use these tools, then, that's a win-win situation. There's certainly people that I've seen who've tried to do what your wife has done, and it's been a horrible mess, partly because they just don't have the skills or interest or commitment. So that's very good to hear. And I think to your point, Christina, these tools are awesome and amazing in many ways, but at the end of the day, check your facts and count the number of fingers. That's absolutely the case. Keep counting the number of fingers on anything that supposedly looks real. So there we go.
I love that. And on that note.
On that note.
And once again, such a fun conversation. And Ed, we have to do this again much sooner rather than later, because you and I go to these crazy places. I'll call them crazy for myself, not for you, but these interesting, unique places in your case. And we really could have many more discussions of this ilk. So appreciate you coming on and spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, from my side as well. That's great. We try to limit ourselves to 30 minutes. Well, we kind of don't, but we always end up going over. And it'd be great to have this as a kind of a special, double episode in one. But we need to kind of we need to cap it somewhere. But it'd be great to have you back on again if you'd be prepared to do that.
Thank you, both of you, for inviting me in here. I love these conversations. And Christina, you're right. We've had them before, and I hope to have them again with you. So keep me in mind when you've got a spot to fill. I'm always happy to sip some coffee and have a chat.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for joining, and I hope to speak with you soon.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
That was fantastic, Christina. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for inviting him on. That was fantastic to have him as a guest.
Oh, Ed is just real people, and really, I have to say, all of our guests have been real humans, not AI generated.
Hooray!
But hooray! But they're also really down to earth, kind, lovely, intelligent, interesting people. So, shout out to all of our guests. Thank you so much. And Ed, it was fabulous to reconnect. It's been too long. So yes, he was wonderful to have on. Thank you again, Ed.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And anything else we need to cover, Christina? I think maybe pitch for charity.
Yeah, one last pitch for the Pitch for Charity. Okta and SentinelOne are sponsoring the giveaway to two wonderful charities. All of the notes will be on our website so that you can read more and how to get involved. But the pitch from me is please join us Wednesday the 30th, 3 p.m. to 4:30, calling all heads of security programs, CISOs, GMs, product managers, anyone who might be interested in hearing the 5 pitches from companies who are going to be on stage. And there are 5 of them. Let's see if I can rattle them off without losing my thoughts. Opnova, Living Security, Splix AI, Gnostic, Turngate Inc. Those 5 will be giving their pitch a half an hour each on Wednesday the 30th. Sign up. You'll get the details as to where you can come join us.
Great. And with that, that's another episode in the bag, Christina. So
unbelievable. Is this episode 14, Rory?
It is episode 14. And the next one will be the special episode 15, which we will be recording at RSA. So with that, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for your comments and your suggestions and your questions. Remember, you can leave us a voicemail at SpeakPipe. The details are in the show notes. Otherwise, we look forward to continuing to chat with you and the interactions. Hope that those of you who are at RSA can come and say hi, and we look forward to sharing in the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.